Letting go is an art, a skill that, when mastered, can transform life from a constant struggle into a state of ease and freedom. However, for many, the idea of letting go feels almost impossible. People hold on to emotions, memories, expectations, and identities because they believe these things define who they are. The mind clings to familiarity even when it causes suffering because it fears the unknown. But the truth is, holding on does not create security, it creates pain. Real security comes from the ability to release, to trust, and to embrace the ever-changing nature of life. Letting go is not about forgetting or pretending something did not happen. It is not about dismissing emotions or denying pain. Instead, it is about understanding that life moves forward whether we hold on or not. Everything in existence is in motion. Time, nature, even our own bodies. The more we resist this movement, the more we suffer. Imagine trying to hold on to flowing water. The tighter we grasp, the more it slips through our fingers. Life is much the same way. Holding on does not give us control, it only increases our frustration. One of the main reasons people struggle with letting go is the fear of losing something valuable. This could be a relationship, a past achievement, or even a sense of identity. People believe that by releasing something, they are losing a part of themselves. But in reality, clinging to the past only prevents them from experiencing the present fully. When we release attachment to past experiences, we do not erase them, we free ourselves from their control. The lessons, the love, the growth remain, but the suffering dissolves. A common form of attachment comes in the shape of resentment and pain. When someone wrongs us, the natural reaction is to hold on to that hurt, replaying the moment in our minds, seeking justice or closure. But carrying resentment is like holding a hot coal, expecting the other person to feel the burn. In truth, it only harms the one holding it. Forgiveness is not about excusing the wrong, but about freeing ourselves from its weight. It is an act of self-liberation. Similarly, letting go of expectations can lead to a profound sense of peace. People often expect life to unfold in a particular way, and when reality does not align with these expectations, disappointment follows. The truth is, life is unpredictable. No matter how much we plan or prepare, there will always be elements beyond our control. When we let go of the need for things to happen in a certain way, we open ourselves to possibilities we may have never considered. Life becomes an adventure rather than a battle. The mind tends to resist letting go because it is attached to the familiar. Even if the familiar is painful, it creates a false sense of identity based on past experiences, roles, and labels. People say, "This is who I am," based on memories and past conditioning, unaware that they are much more than their experiences. When we let go of limiting identities, we realize that we are not defined by what has happened to us, but by the awareness that witnesses it all. Practicing the art of letting go requires mindfulness and presence. It starts with awareness, recognizing when we are holding on to something that no longer serves us. Instead of suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist, we observe them. When a thought or feeling arises, rather than reacting, we acknowledge it and let it pass like a cloud in the sky. Nothing is permanent, not even emotions. By simply witnessing them without attachment, we loosen their grip over us. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this practice is through acceptance. When we accept life as it is, rather than how we wish it to be, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This does not mean we stop working toward goals or striving for better outcomes. It means we learn to flow with life rather than against it. A river does not struggle to move forward, it simply follows its course. When obstacles arise, it finds a way around them. Life works in the same way. The more we resist, the more we struggle. The more we accept, the more we flow effortlessly. Letting go is not a one-time act, but a continuous practice. Every day, life presents opportunities to release something, an old thought, a grudge, an expectation, or a fear. The more we practice, the lighter we feel. Peace is not found in accumulation, but in release. The less we carry, the freer we become. Ultimately, the art of letting go is about trust. Trusting that we are enough without the things we cling to. Trusting that life unfolds as it should. Trusting that true peace is not found in holding on, but in our ability to let go. Attachment is one of the strongest forces that shape human emotions, decisions, and experiences. It is natural for people to become attached to relationships, beliefs, possessions, and even ideas about themselves. However, attachment becomes a source of suffering when it turns into dependence. When people tie their happiness, identity, or sense of worth to something external, they set themselves up for pain because everything in life is temporary. Understanding attachment is the key to freeing oneself from unnecessary suffering and finding a deeper, more lasting sense of peace. At its core, attachment arises from the mind's need for security. People want certainty, stability, and control, so they latch on to things they believe will provide these comforts. This can be a relationship, a career, a material possession, or a personal belief. However, the problem with attachment is that it creates fear, the fear of losing what one is attached to. This fear leads to anxiety, jealousy, and even suffering when things do not go as expected. The truth is, nothing in life is permanent, change is the only constant, and yet people resist it because of attachment. One of the strongest forms of attachment is emotional attachment to people. Humans naturally form deep bonds with others, whether family, friends, or romantic partners. While love and connection are essential parts of life, attachment turns relationships into sources of dependency. When people believe they cannot be happy without another person, they place their emotional well-being in someone else's hands. This often leads to controlling behaviors, fear of abandonment, and a deep sense of insecurity. True love is not about possession, but about allowing each other to grow freely. The moment love turns into attachment, it loses its purity and creates suffering. Attachment is not just about relationships. People also attach themselves to their past experiences. Some hold on to painful memories, reliving them repeatedly, unable to move forward. Others cling to moments of success or happiness, fearing they will never experience such joy again. The past, however, exists only in memory. It cannot be changed, and holding on to it only prevents growth. When people understand that they are not their past, they begin to free themselves from unnecessary burdens. Another powerful form of attachment is attachment to identity. People define themselves based on roles, labels, and societal expectations. They believe they are their profession, their achievements, their failures, or even their beliefs. However, identity is fluid. Who a person was 5 years ago is not who they are today. Clinging to a fixed identity creates suffering because life constantly challenges and reshapes people. The moment they let go of rigid self-definitions, they open themselves to new possibilities and personal evolution. Material attachment is another common struggle. Society conditions people to believe that happiness comes from acquiring wealth, possessions, and status. While material things can provide comfort, they do not create lasting fulfillment. The more people accumulate, the more they fear losing what they have. True peace comes not from having more but from needing less. When people detach from the idea that happiness is linked to material success, they begin to experience a deeper sense of freedom. Understanding attachment requires self-awareness. The first step is recognizing when and where attachment exists. People must ask themselves, what am I afraid of losing? Why do I feel incomplete without this? Is my happiness dependent on this? These questions help uncover hidden attachments and the fears behind them. Once awareness is developed, the process of letting go can begin. Letting go of attachment does not mean becoming indifferent or detached from life. It means experiencing life fully without being enslaved by it. It means loving without clinging, striving without obsessing, and enjoying without fearing loss. True freedom is found when people engage with life deeply while understanding that nothing truly belongs to them. The key to overcoming attachment is trust. Trust in oneself, trust in life, and trust in the natural flow of existence. When people understand that they can be whole and complete without external dependencies, they begin to experience life with a sense of ease. Attachment creates chains, but awareness and acceptance break them. The more people understand this, the closer they get to true peace. Living in the present is one of the most powerful yet often overlooked keys to peace and fulfillment. The human mind is constantly caught between the past and the future, replaying old memories, analyzing mistakes, and worrying about what is to come. This endless cycle of thoughts creates unnecessary stress and prevents people from fully experiencing the richness of life as it unfolds. True peace is not something that can be found in the past or the future. It exists only in the present moment. However, most people struggle to stay present because they have been conditioned to believe that happiness is either something to be reclaimed from the past or something to be achieved in the future. This illusion keeps them trapped in an endless search for fulfillment, never realizing that what they seek is already available to them in the here and now. One of the main reasons people find it difficult to live in the present is their attachment to the past. The mind constantly revisits old memories, whether joyful or painful, and creates an emotional connection to them. Some people relive moments of happiness, wishing they could go back and experience them again, while others dwell on regrets and mistakes, unable to move on. While memories can serve as valuable lessons, they become a burden when they take away from the present. The past cannot be changed, and holding on to it only creates unnecessary suffering. The more a person clings to past experiences, the more they miss out on the opportunities and beauty that exist in the present. Similarly, the mind often projects itself into the future, creating anxiety and fear about things that have not yet happened. People constantly worry about their careers, relationships, finances, and countless other uncertainties. They convince themselves that they can only be happy once they reach a certain goal, achieve a particular status, or secure their future. However, the future is unpredictable, and no amount of worry can control what is to come. When people become too focused on what lies ahead, they fail to appreciate what is happening right now. They live their lives chasing a happiness that always seems just out of reach, unaware that true contentment is not something that can be found in a future moment. It is something that can only be experienced now. Living in the present does not mean ignoring responsibilities or failing to plan for the future. It simply means being fully engaged in the moment rather than allowing the mind to be consumed by thoughts of the past or future. When a person is present, they become more aware of their surroundings, their emotions, and their interactions with others. They begin to notice the simple joys of life, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, the taste of food, the beauty of nature. These are things that often go unnoticed when the mind is distracted, yet they hold the essence of what it means to be truly alive. Another reason people struggle with being present is that they have been conditioned to believe that business equals productivity and success. Society places a high value on constant activity, leading people to feel guilty when they slow down. They rush through life always thinking about the next task, the next obligation, the next milestone. However, true productivity and creativity arise not from endless thinking, but from a state of presence. When the mind is fully engaged in the moment, it becomes clearer, more focused, and more efficient. Whether working, spending time with loved ones, or simply enjoying a moment of stillness, being present allows for deeper experiences and more meaningful connections. Mindfulness is one of the most effective ways to cultivate present moment awareness. It involves consciously bringing attention to what is happening right now without judgment or distraction. Simple practices like focusing on the breath, observing thoughts without attachment, and fully engaging in daily activities can help train the mind to stay present. The more a person practices mindfulness, the more they begin to notice how much of their mental energy is spent elsewhere. Over time, they learn to redirect their focus back to the present, allowing them to experience life with greater clarity and peace. One of the greatest benefits of living in the present is the reduction of stress and anxiety. When people stop dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, they free themselves from unnecessary suffering. They begin to realize that most of their fears are based on imagined scenarios that may never happen. By focusing on the present, they develop a greater sense of trust in life and in themselves. They learn to handle challenges as they arise rather than becoming overwhelmed by the endless what-ifs created by the mind. Living in the present also deepens relationships. When people are truly present with others, they listen more attentively, respond more thoughtfully, and connect more deeply. They stop looking at their phones while having conversations, stop thinking about what they will say next, and instead fully engage with the person in front of them. This level of presence strengthens bonds, fosters understanding, and creates meaningful interactions. Ultimately, living in the present is about embracing life as it is, without resistance or attachment. It is about accepting each moment as it comes, rather than wishing it were different. When people learn to live in the now, they stop chasing happiness and start experiencing it. They realize that peace is not something to be found elsewhere. It is already within them, waiting to be discovered in the only moment that truly exists, the present. Everything in life is constantly changing, yet people resist this truth because they find comfort in familiarity. The idea of impermanence is unsettling to many because it challenges the illusion of stability and control. However, the more one resists change, the more suffering they create for themselves. True peace comes not from holding on to things, but from understanding that everything, people, circumstances, emotions, and even life itself is temporary. Embracing impermanence does not mean becoming indifferent or detached. It means fully experiencing each moment without the fear of losing it. One of the main reasons people struggle with impermanence is that they seek security in things that are inherently fleeting. Relationships, success, youth, health, and material possessions all change over time, yet many people try to cling to them as if they will last forever. This attachment creates fear, the fear of loss, aging, failure, or the unknown. When people tie their happiness to something impermanent, they set themselves up for inevitable disappointment. However, when they accept that change is a natural part of life, they begin to move with it rather than against it. Consider the changing seasons. No matter how much one may love the warmth of summer, it will eventually give way to autumn and then winter. Resisting this reality does not stop the seasons from changing, it only creates frustration. Life operates in the same way. People experience phases of joy, sadness, success, failure, connection, and solitude. Each moment is transient, and trying to hold on to it only prevents them from fully experiencing what comes next. The key is to appreciate each phase while it lasts, knowing that change is not an enemy, but a natural part of existence. Impermanence is also deeply connected to personal growth. People are not the same today as they were years ago. Their beliefs, desires, and perspectives evolve over time. This is a natural process, yet many struggle with it because they fear letting go of old identities. They hold on to past versions of themselves, reluctant to change because it feels like losing a part of who they are. However, growth is only possible when one allows themselves to evolve. By embracing impermanence, people free themselves from outdated beliefs and open themselves to new possibilities. The same principle applies to emotions. No feeling lasts forever, yet people often react as if they will. When sadness or pain arises, many resist it, believing it will never end. They become trapped in their suffering because they identify too strongly with it. However, just like happiness, sadness is temporary. When people allow emotions to come and go without clinging to them, they find greater emotional balance. Impermanence teaches that no state of mind is permanent, and that realization alone can bring immense relief. Relationships are another area where impermanence plays a significant role. Friendships change, loved ones grow apart, and sometimes people lose those they care about. While loss is painful, it is also a reminder of the preciousness of every connection. Instead of fearing the end of relationships, people can learn to cherish the time they have with others. When they accept that nothing lasts forever, they become more present, more appreciative, and more willing to love without attachment. One of the most profound aspects of impermanence is the understanding that life itself is temporary. This is a reality many avoid thinking about, yet it is the very thing that gives life meaning. If people live forever, they might take their days for granted. The knowledge that time is limited encourages them to live fully, love deeply, and focus on what truly matters. Rather than fearing the end, they can use it as motivation to experience life wholeheartedly. Impermanence is not something to be feared, it is something to be embraced. When people stop resisting change and instead flow with it, they find freedom. They stop clinging to the past, stop fearing the future, and start fully experiencing the present. Every moment becomes more valuable because they understand that it will not last forever. Instead of mourning what has ended or anxiously anticipating what is to come, they learn to appreciate what is here right now. In this acceptance lies true peace. The illusion of control is one of the greatest sources of stress and suffering in life. People tend to believe that if they plan enough, work hard enough, or worry enough, they can control every aspect of their lives. They cling to the idea that they can dictate outcomes, prevent unwanted events, and shape the future exactly as they desire. While some level of planning and effort is necessary, the reality is that control is largely an illusion. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much one tries to manipulate circumstances, things will not always go according to plan. Breaking free from this illusion is not about giving up responsibility, but about understanding the limits of control and learning to move with life rather than against it. One of the main reasons people struggle with letting go of control is fear. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, and the mind naturally seeks stability and predictability. People convince themselves that if they can control situations, they can avoid pain, disappointment, or failure. They create routines, set rigid expectations, and resist change, believing that this will provide security. However, life does not operate according to human expectations. Circumstances shift, relationships evolve, and unexpected events occur. When people refuse to accept this reality, they experience frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. The illusion of control is particularly evident in relationships. Many people try to control how others think, feel, or behave, believing that if they can shape someone else's actions, they can ensure their own happiness. This often leads to conflicts, disappointment, and frustration because no one can control another person. Each individual has their own thoughts, emotions, and free will. The more one tries to impose control on others, the more resistance they create. True connection comes not from control but from acceptance, allowing people to be who they are rather than trying to fit them into an idealized version. Similarly, people try to control their emotions, suppressing unpleasant feelings or forcing themselves to feel a certain way. They believe that by pushing sadness, anger, or fear aside, they can avoid suffering. However, emotions are a natural part of life and cannot be controlled in this way. Suppressing emotions does not make them disappear, it only buries them temporarily, causing them to resurface later in unexpected ways. Instead of trying to control emotions, people must learn to observe them, allowing them to come and go like waves in the ocean. Another common area where the illusion of control manifests is in career and success. People often set rigid goals and timelines, believing that if they work hard enough, everything will unfold exactly as they envision. While effort and discipline are important, external factors always play a role. Economic shifts, market trends, opportunities, and even luck influence outcomes. When things do not go according to plan, those who believe in absolute control feel like they have failed. However, success is not always about strict control, it is also about adaptability. Those who recognize this are able to adjust their path when circumstances change rather than becoming stuck in frustration and self-doubt. Breaking the illusion of control also applies to health and the body. People try to control aging, illness, and physical changes, believing that if they eat the right foods, follow the right routines, and avoid risks, they can prevent every possible health issue. While healthy habits are beneficial, the body is still subject to nature's unpredictability. People age, accidents happen, and sometimes illnesses arise despite best efforts. The obsession with control in this area often leads to stress, which ironically harms health more than accepting and adapting to natural changes. One of the most profound realizations that comes from breaking the illusion of control is that freedom lies in surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means acknowledging that not everything is within one's power and learning to move with life's flow. When people release their grip on control, they experience less stress and more peace. They learn to respond to life rather than trying to force it into submission. Instead of resisting change, they embrace it. Instead of fearing uncertainty, they find excitement in the unknown. The truth is, real control comes not from trying to manage every detail of life, but from mastering one's own mind. While external circumstances are unpredictable, inner peace is always within reach. When people shift their focus from controlling the world to controlling their reactions, they gain true power. They become less affected by disappointments, more resilient in the face of challenges, and more open to life's endless possibilities. By breaking the illusion of control, people free themselves from unnecessary suffering. They stop wasting energy on trying to control the uncontrollable and instead learn to trust in life. They develop faith, not necessarily in a religious sense, but faith in the process of life itself. They realize that they can handle whatever comes their way, even if it is different from what they expected. In this realization, they find a deeper sense of peace, joy, and freedom than they ever could through control. Inner awareness is the foundation of true peace, clarity, and self-discovery. It is the ability to observe one's own thoughts, emotions, and reactions without getting lost in them. Most people live their lives externally focused, constantly reacting to situations, seeking validation from others, and trying to control the world around them. However, true fulfillment does not come from external achievements or circumstances. It comes from understanding oneself deeply. When a person cultivates inner awareness, they gain the ability to navigate life with wisdom and emotional balance, rather than being controlled by impulses, fears, or fleeting emotions. One of the first steps in developing inner awareness is recognizing that the mind is constantly active, generating thoughts that shape emotions and behaviors. Many people go through life unaware of their own mental patterns, reacting instinctively without questioning why they feel or act a certain way. They assume that their thoughts define them, that their emotions are absolute truths, and that they have little control over how they respond to life. However, inner awareness allows a person to step back and observe their mind, rather than being entirely consumed by it. This simple shift in perspective creates a powerful sense of freedom. Suddenly, instead of being controlled by emotions, one can begin to understand and manage them. Inner awareness also brings clarity about one's true desires and motivations. Many people live according to expectations set by society, family, or peers, without deeply questioning whether those paths align with their own nature. They chase success, relationships, or recognition, believing these things will bring lasting happiness, only to find themselves feeling unfulfilled. By turning inward and observing their own thoughts and feelings, people begin to separate their true desires from those that have been imposed upon them. They gain the ability to make choices based on deep self-knowledge rather than external pressures. Another crucial aspect of inner awareness is emotional intelligence. Emotions are a natural part of life, but without awareness, they can dictate behavior in ways that lead to suffering. People often suppress their emotions or become overwhelmed by them, reacting impulsively in ways that cause harm to themselves or others. However, when a person becomes aware of their emotions as they arise, they gain the ability to process them in a healthy way. Instead of suppressing sadness, they acknowledge it. Instead of being consumed by anger, they observe it with curiosity. This ability to recognize and understand emotions without being controlled by them leads to greater inner stability and resilience. Developing inner awareness also deepens one's relationship with the present moment. Many people are trapped in the past, dwelling on regrets or painful experiences, or they are constantly looking toward the future, worrying about what may or may not happen. This habit of mental time travel creates stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. However, inner awareness brings attention back to the present. When a person becomes fully present, they realize that peace is not something to be found in the past or future, it exists only in the now. The more one cultivates inner awareness, the more they are able to experience life as it unfolds without being burdened by regrets or fears. Another transformative aspect of inner awareness is the ability to break free from negative thought patterns. The mind is filled with conditioned beliefs and habitual ways of thinking, many of which are limiting or self-defeating. People may tell themselves they are not good enough, that they will never succeed, or that happiness depends on external circumstances. These unconscious beliefs shape their experiences and create unnecessary suffering. However, when a person develops inner awareness, they begin to notice these mental patterns and question their validity. They realize that thoughts are just thoughts, they are not absolute truths. This realization allows them to break free from self-imposed limitations and replace negative patterns with more empowering perspectives. Cultivating inner awareness also enhances relationships. When people become more aware of their own emotions, reactions, and triggers, they develop greater empathy and understanding for others. Instead of reacting defensively in conflicts, they learn to pause, reflect, and respond with wisdom. They become less judgmental and more compassionate because they recognize that just as they struggle with their own fears and insecurities, so do others. This shift in awareness leads to deeper connections and more harmonious interactions with the people around them. The practice of mindfulness and meditation is one of the most effective ways to develop inner awareness. These practices involve bringing attention inward, observing thoughts without attachment, and becoming fully present. Over time, this practice helps quiet the mind, reduce stress, and create a deeper sense of inner clarity. Even in daily life, simple moments of stillness, pausing before reacting, taking a deep breath before speaking, or simply noticing one's surroundings, can strengthen inner awareness. Ultimately, inner awareness is about knowing oneself beyond surface level thoughts and emotions. It is about recognizing the deeper, unchanging essence within, a space of stillness, wisdom, and peace that exists beyond the fluctuations of the mind. The more a person cultivates this awareness, the more they free themselves from unnecessary suffering. They stop being controlled by external events, fleeting emotions, or conditioned beliefs, and instead, they move through life with a sense of ease and clarity. This inner awareness is the key to true peace, not because it changes external circumstances, but because it changes how one experiences and responds to them. Acceptance is one of the most profound and transformative states of mind that a person can cultivate. It is the ability to embrace life as it is rather than resisting, denying, or wishing things were different. Many people spend a great deal of time and energy fighting against reality, trying to change things that are beyond their control, or dwelling on how life should be. However, this resistance only creates suffering. True peace comes not from controlling every aspect of life, but from accepting things as they are and responding with wisdom and grace. At its core, acceptance does not mean passive resignation. Many people misunderstand acceptance as giving up, allowing injustice, or failing to make an effort to improve situations. In reality, acceptance is the starting point for real change. When a person acknowledges things as they are, without distortion, avoidance, or unnecessary struggle, they can respond more effectively. Resistance clouds judgment and leads to emotional turmoil, but when one accepts a situation fully, they gain clarity, allowing them to act from a place of wisdom rather than fear or frustration. One of the most common areas where acceptance is crucial is in dealing with the past. Many people carry regrets, guilt, or resentment, replaying past mistakes or painful experiences over and over in their minds. They wish things had been different, that they had made different choices, or that others had treated them better. However, the past cannot be changed, and resisting it only prolongs suffering. Acceptance does not mean approving of what happened, it simply means acknowledging reality. When a person accepts the past, they free themselves from its hold and can focus on the present, where real change is possible. Similarly, acceptance is essential in relationships. People often wish that others would behave differently, that they would be more understanding, more loving, or more in alignment with personal expectations. This leads to frustration, disappointment, and strained relationships. True connection comes not from trying to change people, but from accepting them as they are. This does not mean tolerating harm or staying in unhealthy situations, but it does mean recognizing that people have their own paths, experiences, and limitations. Acceptance creates space for understanding, which in turn fosters deeper and more meaningful relationships. Acceptance also applies to emotions. Many people struggle with their own feelings, believing they should always be happy, strong, or in control. When sadness, anger, or fear rises, they resist, suppress, or judge themselves for feeling that way. However, emotions are natural responses to life, and resisting them only amplifies suffering. Acceptance means allowing emotions to exist without attachment or aversion. Instead of pushing emotions away or being consumed by them, a person can simply acknowledge their presence, observe them without judgment, and allow them to pass naturally. This approach reduces emotional turmoil and creates inner peace. Another area where acceptance is powerful is in facing uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and no amount of planning or worrying can guarantee a specific outcome. Many people resist uncertainty, seeking control and guarantees that do not exist. They fear the unknown and become anxious about what the future may hold. However, when a person accepts uncertainty, they begin to trust in life's natural flow. They stop clinging to rigid expectations and become more adaptable, responding to situations as they arise rather than being paralyzed by fear. This flexibility brings a deep sense of freedom and ease. Acceptance is also vital when dealing with physical and personal limitations. People often struggle with aspects of themselves they wish were different: their appearance, abilities, health, or even personality traits. Society constantly reinforces the idea that they should always be improving, always striving for perfection. However, true self-love comes from accepting oneself fully. This does not mean ignoring growth or personal development, but rather embracing oneself with kindness and understanding. When a person accepts themselves as they are, they develop confidence and inner peace that are not dependent on external validation. One of the most profound forms of acceptance is accepting the nature of life itself. Everything is impermanent, relationships change, people grow, circumstances evolve, and eventually everyone faces loss. Many people resist this truth, fearing change and trying to hold on to what is temporary. However, when one embraces impermanence, they stop grasping at things that are fleeting. They learn to appreciate each moment fully, knowing that nothing lasts forever. This perspective allows them to love more deeply, experience life more richly, and move through transitions with grace. Cultivating acceptance requires mindfulness and awareness. It involves noticing when resistance arises, whether in thoughts, emotions, or behaviors, and choosing to let go. Meditation and self-reflection are powerful tools for developing this skill. When a person observes their mind without judgment, they begin to recognize how much of their suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from their own resistance to reality. By consciously practicing acceptance, they create space for peace, clarity, and joy. Ultimately, the power of acceptance lies in its ability to free people from unnecessary struggle. It shifts focus from trying to control the uncontrollable to embracing life as it is. This does not mean becoming passive, but rather engaging with life from a place of openness and wisdom. When a person accepts what is, they stop wasting energy on resistance and start using that energy to create meaningful change. They experience life with greater ease, knowing that peace is not found in perfect circumstances, but in the ability to accept and embrace whatever comes their way. Freedom from identity is one of the most liberating realizations a person can experience. From birth, people are conditioned to believe that they are a set of labels, rules, and beliefs that define them. They identify with their name, nationality, religion, profession, personality traits, successes, failures, and even their past experiences. This identity becomes the lens through which they perceive themselves and the world. While having a sense of self is necessary for functioning in society, being overly attached to identity can become a limitation. When people believe they are only what their identity dictates, they unknowingly trap themselves within mental boundaries that prevent them from experiencing life fully. True freedom comes when one begins to see beyond these constructed identities and realizes they are not confined to any particular label or role. One of the biggest traps of identity is that it creates a rigid sense of self. People build their identities based on societal expectations, personal experiences, and inherited beliefs, and then they spend their lives trying to maintain and defend these identities. If someone sees themselves as a successful person, they may live in constant fear of failure because failure threatens their identity. If someone identifies strongly with being a kind person, they may struggle when they feel anger or frustration, believing those emotions contradict who they are. Instead of allowing themselves to be fluid, adaptable beings, they become imprisoned by their self-definitions. This rigidity causes suffering because life is ever-changing, yet identity demands consistency. Another challenge with identity is that it often creates separation between people. The moment one identifies too strongly with a particular group, whether based on nationality, religion, ideology, or even personal preferences, they begin to see others as different or opposed to them. This leads to conflict, judgment, and misunderstanding. When people view themselves as separate from others based on identity, they create barriers that limit compassion and connection. The truth is that beneath these constructed identities, all human beings share the same fundamental essence. Recognizing this dissolves unnecessary divisions and fosters a deeper sense of unity with others. The attachment to identity also fuels ego-driven behaviors. The ego thrives on labels and definitions because they provide a sense of importance and control. If someone strongly identifies with being intelligent, they may feel the need to prove their intelligence in every situation. If someone identifies as successful, their self-worth may become dependent on external achievements. This constant need to validate identity leads to stress, competition, and an endless pursuit of external validation. But when one realizes that they are not limited to any single identity, they no longer need to prove themselves to the world. They become free to simply be, without the pressure of living up to a fixed image. Letting go of identity does not mean losing individuality or becoming indifferent to life. It means recognizing that identity is just a mental construct and that one's true nature is much vaster than any label. When people detach from rigid identities, they gain the ability to adapt, evolve, and experience life more openly. They no longer fear change because they understand that they are not defined by any one aspect of their existence. They can move through different phases of life without resistance, embracing each moment without being constrained by a predefined sense of self. One of the most profound aspects of freeing oneself from identity is the release of past burdens. Many people carry stories from their past that shape their sense of self, stories of pain, failure, or trauma. They believe they are the sum of these experiences, and they continue to relive them through the identity they have built. But the past is only a memory, and identity based on past experiences is an illusion. When one lets go of these attachments, they realize they are not their past, and they are not bound by any previous version of themselves. This realization brings immense liberation, allowing them to live in the present without the weight of old narratives. Another important aspect of transcending identity is the ability to embrace life's unpredictability. When people are too attached to who they think they are, they resist change because it threatens their sense of self. But life is fluid, and clinging to a fixed identity only creates suffering when circumstances inevitably shift. When one lets go of rigid identity, they flow with life rather than against it. They become more open to new experiences, new perspectives, and new ways of being. Instead of fearing change, they welcome it as an opportunity for growth. Freedom from identity also allows for deeper self-discovery. When people stop identifying with superficial labels, they begin to explore who they truly are beyond words and concepts. This journey leads to a profound sense of inner peace because they no longer feel the need to fit into a certain mold. They stop seeking validation from the world because they understand that they are not defined by external approval. This self-discovery brings an authentic sense of fulfillment that no identity-based achievement ever could. Ultimately, freedom from identity is the key to true liberation. It is the realization that one is not a fixed being confined to a set of labels, but rather an ever-changing, limitless presence. By releasing attachment to identity, people free themselves from unnecessary suffering, open themselves to deeper connections, and experience life with greater clarity and joy. In this freedom, they no longer feel the need to prove, defend, or uphold anything. They simply exist as they are, moving through life with a sense of lightness and peace.